Hello, I'm Melinda Layton, Spiff Practice Lead at GoCaria. Today we are going to talk about creating a team leaderboard in Spiff. So the idea of a leaderboard is simple. You want to have a quick place to see how your team is ranked against each other and how each individual is doing against the team. And then at the end of the quarter, you want an easy way to pay out the leader of the team and each individual in the team based on their performance. So here we can see Clementine is ranked 4th and doesn't get a leader bonus this month. But if we go to Clad's payout, we should see that he's 2nd and should have a $2,500 team placement bonus. And we see that he does. And we can see that his name is in 2nd place. So let's go and see how this is done in Designer. So the magic here happens in our users table. If you saw my earlier video on the birthday bonus, some of this may already be familiar, but it's always good to review it again. This is our user table and lists all of the users in our system, whether or not they are currently receiving payouts through Spiff. We can create a simple summary field on the user table that looks at our hire in quarter, which is simply our field that checks, which is simply our contracts filter that only looks at whether the permanent begin work date is within this quarter and counts the number of placements that that particular user has in the quarter. Now, because each user has 5 possible places that they can be listed on our contracts, we can't just use a single place to determine if they are on that contract team. So let's take a quick look at our hires in quarter filter. So the hire in quarters filter is just the permanent begin work date is within our current calendar quarter, and the successful placement is equal to true, which means that person did rescind their contract within the first 60 days. Now, the hire in quarter, if we look at the usage, we can see that this combines with our AM in quarter, recruiter in quarter, or recruiter team lead in quarter filters. So we usually combine this with another filter that tells us if this person is an AM, in which case we are looking at the account manager 1, account manager 2 field. The is AM manager, in which case we are looking at the AM1 roll-up or AM2 roll-up. Is recruiter, in which case we're looking at recruiter 1, recruiter 2, or recruiter 3 to see if those equal the rep ID. Or is the recruiter team lead, in which case we're looking at the roll-ups for those recruiter 1, recruiter 2, and recruiter 3, which is again looking for that rep ID, but now for all the users on the team. So since that's not quite what we want to do here, we want to check a single thing to see if that user is on the team. What we wanted to do was to simplify that. So what we did is we want to create a name check. And the simplest way that I have to do that is to create this contract team list, simply the recruiter name, the Rec 2 name, the Rec 3 name, the account manager name, and the account manager 2 name. And we're just concatenating all of those into a simple list. So this is a list of just those names. And that's all that this is just a list of those names. So what this is allowing me to do is, now that I have that list, when I go to our users field and that users filter, I can check very simply if on an individual placement, is this individual user on that list. For each user record, is Vlad Reiflin on that list for each individual record in the hire encoder. The hire encoder is going through each record in that hire encoder filter and seeing how many of them have Vlad's name, how many of them have Clementina's name, how many of them have Jed Prentice's name, and counting them if they have that name. That's giving us a count of each of those users' placements in the quarter. Now, very importantly, because we are on the user's record, you do not want to have a filter here that filters by rep. It must be a filter that includes all the users, or you're only going to see records that contain the rep that you're currently on. So this is going to show all of the users in the system, no matter which rep we are on. If I change to Dominique, the numbers in that user placements should not change. And you can see that that does not change. Now, placement fees is going to use that exact same logic, but now instead of a countif, we're going to use a sumif. So count is just saying count a record if it meets the criteria. Sumif is going to take that one step farther, and instead of just counting the record, it's going to look for specific information on the record, either a single field, in this case a calculated field, the deal placement fee split, or an expression that you calculate. So this is going to sum all of the deal placement fee splits that are on those records and determine what the deal placement fee split is for each user in the quarter so far. This is an easy way that's the first element that you need in a leaderboard, is what amount did each user make in the quarter. That's step one. You need to create a record for each user. They are just records that are carried in from our system of record and don't have any data. That's going to be very common in a lot of things. And as we go in to create our ranks, those are going to be unranked values. Now, once we're using a filter, that's not usually going to be a problem, but certain things, if we want to filter like on our ranks, it will be a problem. That just to point out that we expect a lot of zero records. So you do want to make sure you're thinking about that as you move forward. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that rank, which is our key function here, actually works the reverse of how you think it should. And because of that, it's like golf scoring. So the lower the number, the better the rank. So like a race, you want the lowest possible time, or like golf, you want the lowest possible score. So if you're doing something like placement or fees where you want the highest possible number, there's two ways you can invert the rank. The first way you can do it is to invert your number. So just multiply your number by -1 and then do the rank on that. The second way would be to create a count of how many records you're counting, subtract your rank from that, and then add 1. So that your number 11, your worst case would be 11 minus 1 would be 10, and then you want to do +1 to bring it back to 11. A little bit of a hack you need to do there, because rank is reversed of how you think it is. This is something I've brought up with product before, and I know there's current issues out and future requests to allow us to reverse rank. But in the meantime, this is just something you need to be aware of, that if you're using the rank, it's going to do a racing metric. So 1 is your lowest score. So if you need to invert that, make sure that you do invert it with either a -1 or by counting your number of entrants and reversing that rank. So if we go to our recruiting metrics page, you see I just have a count of my filter has placements, and that's what I'm using to reverse my rank. Now, one other thing I want to point out here, because I ran into a very weird filter that threw me when I first started doing this. I ran into this error and it took me a little while to figure out what was going on. So to save you the trouble of running into this yourself, you cannot filter records using the unsupported expression in calculated fields. And I just could not figure out what was going on. And if you notice here, it says placement rank old. And what I ran into is even if I pre-filtered my placement ranks, because this is trying to create a filter, it is looking at all of the user records. Placement rank old has all of these errors because the set does not have, the user just isn't in that set. When it goes to sort by that set, the user isn't in the set, and that's what's causing that error. What I ended up doing is making this placement rank, this new placement rank, where I just created a holder value that if my number of user placements in the quarter was 0, so all those users that don't have a value, I just gave them a placeholder rank that's way above my number of ranked users. In this case, I did 100. You might need 1,000 or 999, just something that's way above your number of ranked users, so that this placement rank is just higher than any of your users' placements. And that way you can use this for a sort. So just as kind of a warning there, if you need to use this placement rank in a filter, you just want to make sure that all of your values have a valid thing. And if error is one way you could do this, or in this case, we know what that error is going to be, so we can just directly test for that. In this case, we know it's that user placements have to have an actual value. So we can directly look at that user placements, know that that's going to be a 0, and define that value as a really high rank. And then we can rank our users that we know are going to have a placement. So just to save you from getting that error and getting frustrated about not knowing what that's going to be. And this becomes even more apparent when we are doing a filter on a smaller set. Just like the placement rank here, the recruiter's rank, instead of using the count of 0, because some of our ones that have a count of 0 are not in our recruiter's rank. So here we need to use that if error on our rank, then just use that rank of 100. So anybody that's not in our group of 5 users that are in that recruiters group will have a rank of 100. So if I switch that filter to just has placements, and sorry, Spiff is being or even to the no filters, you can see that we have our filter, our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and everything else is 100. If I go down to has placements, these should have 11 records, but we're still going to see our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're going to see 100 of 5. But again, we're only seeing our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we can now use in our filters. But really important to do some error checking if you need to use something as a placeholder. Okay, so rank, you need to invert it, and that's going to give you a rank. Okay. And then the next trick I want to go through, take this down to a team. So one of the ways to do this is we want to have the same team for everybody on the team. So before, when we did a team, we only wanted a roll up for a team lead, and that's often what you want to do. But that roll up only works for the leader of the team. In this case, we want everybody on the team to have the same roll up. So what we're going to use is called the shared roll up. And in this case, we want everybody to use the same one. So you're going to need to do one for each of your teams. And there are some ways to do this that are fancier, that you can assign these in a more automated way. And if you want me to show you some of the automated tricks for working with larger teams and doing some automated assignments that aren't using these automated roll-ups, let me know in the comments and I will do those, but those are a lot more advanced than using the shared built-in things. If you have a smaller number of teams, just go ahead and use these automatic things, because these are going to take into account better the time frames of when things move on and off. So in this case, we're saying just keep it in the current quarter if people move on and off the team in the current quarter. And so we're saying anybody that's on either of these two teams qualifies for this particular group. So if we look at our recruiters now, so the recruiters is those 5 users that are on the team. So now if we're looking at our recruiters rank, instead of being 1 of 11, which is what we had with our original display rank, we can see that some of these recruiters were 7 of 11, 10 of 11, 9 of 11. We can see that now these are 4 or 5. These are all first, second, third, 4 or 5, and 5 of 5. So the recruiters just had to compete among themselves. And then I created this little display. So there's a first place, a second place, and a third place. And this is actually coming from our worksheet. You can see we have our recruiting metrics. We have a rank 1, a rank 2, and a rank 3 field that matches if this rank is equal to rank 1, 2, or 3. Otherwise, make a recruiter's rank of the recruiter's count. Otherwise, you shouldn't get there. Whenever I use an ifs, I always do a true equals 0 as my last element of my ifs. That's my else statement. So let's go ahead and take a look at that recruiter metrics page so you can see what that looks like. So recruiting metrics, this is that first place, rank 1, second place, rank 2, third place, rank 3. You can just go to Emojipedia or any other standard emoji place, not custom emojis, but any standard emoji listing, and you can copy those emojis straight into the text in your formula bar and just place whatever emojis you like in line. That's how we did our celebration time emojis here. That's how we did our first place, second place, third place. And then our count of the recruiters is just literally a count of that recruiter's filter. And you can see this is what that automatic roll-up filter looks like in text mode. You don't have to do this manually. And again, if I were to show you how to do it, it doesn't quite look like that. But this is where that recruiter's count is. So all of my summary calculations, I try to keep on this one page. Just makes that one page of places that I look at things. So let's go ahead and look at our filters now that we're using. We are using a filter here called Top 3 and Me. So this is either the ID is equal to rep ID, or that recruiter's rank is equal to 3 or less. So if I'm Dominique, she's rank 4. So this is going to show the first, second, third place recruiter and her. If I switch to one of the top 3, in this case, Vlad, this is only going to return 3 results because he's part of the top 3. So the top 3 and me is going to return the top 3 recruiters and the rep if they're not in the top 3. So up to 4. So now if we go to the plans, we can go to the recruiter. And I now have a recruiter's quarter placement team bonus worksheet. And now we're on Clementina. She's in 3rd place. So that top 3 and me filter is returning just the top 3 since she's in the top 3. Now for the display name, we can choose to show just first, second, and third. And then the one person's name, we can choose to show the user's name. Or we can show the rank, or we can show first names, we can show whatever that would be, the number of placements, what the potential bonus is, that 5,000, 2,500, or 1,000. This is just, there's a prize chart, so this is a lookup, gold, silver, bronze. And this is set up that if we want to do more lookups like that, becomes very simple. And then my corner bonus team. So if the name is equal to the rep's name, pay out the bonus, otherwise it's 0. And then I like to do an is end of quarter, or this is true or false type of logic, because it allows the rest of this to get calculated, and then this determiner should become 1 or 0 to determine whether or not something gets paid. Because the challenge is if you calculate an if statement and it's not the end of the quarter, the rest of it doesn't get calculated. So if you have a lot of things here, like your bonus potential, here, this wouldn't get calculated. That was more old Spiff. I think now most of the things do get calculated, but I still think this is a little bit cleaner as just a logic. So the bonus potential, and then you determine if it's the end of the quarter, then you go ahead and pay it. If it's not yet the end of the quarter, you don't. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like again on the front end. So let's look at just our recruiter plan. So let's look at Vlad. So we are in June. So the end of our quarter is June 25th. He gets 2,500 because he's in 2nd place. Right now I'm just losing their first names, but you can see we also have the display name. Again, that would be a corporate culture thing. Do you want to obscure the names? Do you want to show the names? That's completely a corporate culture. If we go and look at one of the people on the team, like Taryn, who's not doing as well, they still get to see that quarter board, but they can see that their 19 placements has them out of the running. They would need to get to 45 placements. Since it's already June, they're probably not going to get there. If we go ahead and look at the next month, let's see how they're doing. In September, they're still running behind. They're only at 3. And the third place is 11, but that lets them know what they can shoot for to get into that, to get and bump off that next person on the list. Here in second place, he can see that he's only 1 placement away from Vlad in first place. So that could make a very strong competition between those two, knowing how close they are in the leaderboard. So now we go back to designer. For the managers, we've done something very similar. And we've made a company-wide leaderboard. Where we're now looking at the placement rank and the all fees rank for everybody in the company that has placements. So maybe they want to compare how these 2 ranks are. So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like on the front end. And you can see here that this is actually a really large number, this 8 million. That is not an actual hypothetical commission. That is the company summary. That's how much fees the whole company has collected in the quarter. So you can actually use something like this to summarize a key value that they may be looking at for the quarter or the month or whatever time period. And this can give them a really quick way to look at how the whole team is doing, look at some key statistics of their different employees, let them do some quick sorts and see some information on their statements that lets them kind of see a mini report right in their commission statements. Yes, we still have a dashboard, we still have the fuller reports, but this gives them someplace small to see the really key critical information. And maybe they're thinking whether they want to extend this bonus to more people in the company, and they're trying to decide whether they want to make this by fees or by the user placements, and they want to see how that looks quarter over quarter and how those compare against each other. And is one team always going to be winning that? Is that a fair competition? This lets them all see that. And we actually have all of the managers can see that same exact company summary. And that would just give all of them that ability to quickly see that key information in one place. So these what if rules really can give you some flexibility to show additional information at a glance for key people. And you can put other information in there, managers, team names, regions, whatever information you need that's easily accessible can be put on that user table and added to the company information. Makes Spiff a really powerful tool right on that manager statement, where not only now are they checking their own information and their own paycheck, but they can quickly check on their employees, their team's information, some company statistics. And a lot of leaders end up calling this a dashboard because they can see key information at a glance and get that information in one place without even going into reporting, without going any farther than this. And this can be a really key place of information for Spiff. And it ties what they care about, which is their own paychecks, with some of those key company statistics that you want them to keep an eye on, as well as some key performance statistics about their employees, or whether they're entering information about the CRMs and the data and the funnel. And like I said, this information, because Spiff is real time, even if they're looking at last month's payroll, they can already be taking a peek at what the funnel looks like for next month. What data is already started for next month? Is there funnel coming in? Is there already stuff starting to come in on that funnel for next month? Do you have estimates already coming in for next month? So this is a great way to keep everything synced up and to keep the users' self-interest of their own paycheck aligned with the company interest and their team interest and keep everybody in that place of keeping their eyes where the company wants them to see it and keeping key information that you want them to think about right up here in the top metrics and keeping that information in alignment. If you are ready for your Spiff administration to align with where your commissions need to be and you need some help along that pathway and you need some one-on-one coaching to get there, contact us at info@gocaria or check our page at gocaria.com/spiff or reach out to me at linkedin.mlayton or mlayton@mlayton.com and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Please do all the YouTube things, like and subscribe, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.